a lot of these pieces. We've also developed a name for it. We call it Western Community Energy, WCE for short, with a little tagline: "We are your neighborhood power authority." We've developed a lot of frequently asked questions that we have provided to each of our cities, and we can share with the residents, as well as providing a number of updates like this one. So the website is up and running. If you go to westerncommunityenergy.com, if I see you on your phones, I will take no offense, because I know you're going to check out that website right now. It's a really nice website. So we'll go along with this question and answer. So we've received a lot of questions. Why do jurisdictions? Why are they looking at participating? Why do they participate? Again, the 59 jurisdictions that are part of one, why are they doing it? There are really five reasons that we've heard across the state as we've made these tours, talked to these folks. A lot of these things I think would resonate with our subregion as well. The first answer, in no priority, rate savings. We're seeing, again, given the business plan, a 4.4% savings could yield savings for each of the cities, municipal accounts, as well as residents and commercial businesses, driving economic development, etc. Here, I won't go into this little slide, this table in depth, but I will point out for the city of Hemet, at a 2% savings, again, not a 4.4%, but we're just going conservative on conservative here. There would be roughly about a $1.8 million savings to the residents, and $27,000 there for municipal customers at a 2% savings, not 4.4. Again, why are folks participating? The second answer is there's a track record of success. CCAs haven't been around for hundreds of years, but there are a lot that have been around closer to a decade. There are 17 across the state. There have been none that have failed. There have been no cities that have opted out of CCAs to date. Each of them has achieved the objectives that they have set out to achieve, whether it is savings, whether it is local control, whether it is developing local power, etc. A lot of those have met the objectives that they have set. All of them have, I should say. It also provides choices for the community where perhaps there weren't any prior. Once a city joins a CCA, the constituents, all the residents, kind of take it from there. They'll have that choice of the power that is coming into their business, coming into their residence. Local control and local input on rate settings is something that we've heard is of interest across the state. Jurisdictions despise losing local control or threats to their ability to govern. A CCA actually would provide additional local control. Edison's rates are set by the CPUC in San Francisco. Not a lot of folks are able to get up to those board meetings and provide public comments at those. This will provide a little bit more of that local rate setting opportunity for our residents, for our cities. There are little excerpts on the bottom of all of these slides. I won't read any of those. Those are testimonials from existing CCAs, existing customers that we've kind of put together for purposes of this presentation. I won't go through all of those, though. Economic drivers is of interest. We've heard that time and time again. CCAs are good for the economy. We're seeing that. The top priority for our jurisdictions, WRCOG had a visioning session of our executive committee a couple of years ago. There were a lot of priorities that were set. The common denominator of all of those was the economy and promoting that, boosting that. And this is we see this, WRCOG, our executive committee, see this as an opportunity to drive that. So what's driving the timeline? Regulation, legislation. There's a CPUC resolution that simply states that jurisdictions must submit an implementation plan by January of 2019 in order to launch in 2020. What that means is by August, if we have cities on board to participate in this CCA and we have it developed, we can start having board meetings to identify that implementation plan, and we can go from there. The participation in that board does not The city will not be stuck into that. There will be a time after August. We will develop savings reports given all of your information. In September, we'll essentially have a go or no go. We'll have a report that will state if this is financially feasible or not. If it's not, there will be no liabilities on the cities to stop or disband the JPA at that point. If it does make sense to move forward and it's a favorable report, in October of 2018, I'm on the top right of that of the flow chart here. October of 2018, we'll draft that implementation plan. We'll release it, send it to the CPUC for approval, release that, and we would be moving forward with the 2020 launch. So we'll have plenty of time to continue to develop this program and these offerings to each of the cities that are participating. What are the benefits for joining first? Helping develop the CCA goals program, policy goals, reserve policies, revenue sharing opportunities and policies, as well as directing staff in receiving pushing additional assistance with energy-related grants, program opportunities, etc., showing leadership in your community. The governance structure is pretty simple. The governing board, very similar to WRCOG, will direct staff to administer the CCA program, and WRCOG staff will have a number of consultants to support all of the moving pieces. We have our portfolio managers who will be our energy marketers, the Energy Authority. We have technical assistants that will be supporting rate development and rate setting. ES Consulting, Calpine will do all of the data management and billing alongside Southern California Edison. They will remain a partner in that piece, as well as we'll develop marketing and branding that will go out to residents pre and post launch of a CCA. And Creative Bar will help with the branding and marketing. How do CCAs join? It's pretty simple. The council takes action to join the JPA. Council holds public hearing for a CCA ordinance. What are the CCA staff impacts? We hope that they're not. It's not a lot. Just simply providing information at front counters. If you receive any questions, WRCOG can be here on site to answer those questions, or you can relay the questions to WCE staff, and we can answer those. What are the next steps? I'm reiterating a lot of things here. We're looking for some cities to join by August. We're hoping that once we have some cities on board, we can begin developing the rate and environmental savings reports. By September, we'll have affirmative if this is a financially feasible opportunity or not for all of the cities that are participating, and we can move forward from September. Setting the rates, that is a question that comes up quite often as well. We've answered this in essentially two ways. There are two scenarios: as the current process, and then what a CCA rate setting would look like. The current process is Southern California Edison is setting their rates at the CPUC every 3 years in San Francisco. The CCA process would be there would not be a 3-year requirement. The city and the elected board would be able to set rates whenever they deem appropriate. The public input can be taken into account. It is, they're all of the same Brown Act requirements. There will be public hearings, board meetings that we can take public input at, and we can go from there. City customers will be notified on an annual basis of how WCE's rates are developed and how those rates compare to existing Edison rates. That's a CPUC requirement. That will be on the website. That will be sent out in mailers to all of the participating residents, so they can compare line item by line item essentially how they're stacking up. What are the risks? There are risks in everything we do as local jurisdictions. Legislative and regulatory risks are always out there. There are the risks of energy costs increasing, decreasing in Edison, decrease in SCE generation rates are a risk. How can they be minimized? Active engagement at state agencies. We've begun that, working with advocacy groups, rate setting groups. The CCA Trade Association we're working with as well. at the statewide level. And one of the biggest pieces of rate setting and CCA development is making sure that our reserve policy is up to snuff, and that we have a rate stabilization fund that can weather any sort of rate shocks. So that will be something that those cities that join on early can help to develop those risk and revenue, risk and rate stabilization funds and policies. What are the liabilities if the CCA opts out after launch? The city can opt out at any time, quite honestly. While no cities have ever dropped out of the CCA, they have that opportunity and the choice on whether they bring their residents with them or they opt out of municipal accounts only. Some of the options for cities after launch: if cities can give a notice to the JPA to not purchase any more power for its residents and wait out the contracts, or if a city does not want to wait, that energy that the CCA has procured for a city would be sold on the market at whatever the market rate is, whether it's higher or lower, and we would essentially go from there to try to mitigate those additional costs as much as we could. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Tyler?
Tyler, just for clarity, so all we really need to do tonight, if we choose, is to say we have interest, is to say we are interested in looking into this further and joining the JPA at some possible time, and that would give us time as well as all these other things go into play to better understand the whole dynamic. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So for tonight, again, all we'd have to show is that we have some interest in really looking into this, and perhaps at a later date join the JPA. So I think some of the questions some people would have, and certainly I did, was what is the cost to the city to join?
WRCOG is covering all upfront costs. There's no cost to the city to join.
Thank you. So I think we're always apprehensive when something new comes to the market, and you know it's waters we haven't swam in yet, and it's hard to understand or have faith in that this is going to be a really good thing. We hope, of course, anybody going into it is going into it because they hope to save their residents up a certain percentage, and the fact that we have local control versus SCE coming in and just saying, raising their rates and saying, well, we have no say in what they do. So this again brings the local control back into play and managed in a way that is necessary. So, you know, we look at places in the city such as the library that the electric bills in the library are incredible. Hundreds, thousands of dollars. Is that correct, Kathy?
I don't see the bills.
Oh. Maybe you should. They're big. So I think I'm always encouraged to explore those options that would be certainly best for the city as a whole, whether it be residents, city offices, or buildings, commercial. Does this include commercial as well?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. So as we constantly see utility bills going up, what can we do as a community or as a city to help negate that? So again, foreign waters, new concept. I always like to think that we would not have a blind eye to what could help. Now, we all know everything's a risk, I guess, you know, we don't know all the for sures. But again, I sure would like to have the option of showing some interest and then having some time to understand the whole concept and what it could do for the city. Just my 2 cents. And, you know, I'm sure city attorney may have some things to share, perhaps city manager and other council members for that matter. Yeah.
I have a question with regards to commercial and industrial. They're going to see, is there, if this gets implemented, are the rate structure going to be similar to what Edison's doing? Time of use, peak demand, is there, for a business or an industry that's in the city that's on this, that uses a lot of electricity, they're very electricity reliant on whether it's manufacturing equipment or of that nature, are they going to see significant savings? And then also, how does this affect, on the residential side, how is this going to affect people that are on net metering agreements?
So I heard 2 questions, a rate and a net energy metering question. So per the rate question, the existing CCAs, so rates would be set at the board, so they can be set any way the board sees it. However, what we're seeing across the CCAs across the state is typically they copy the structure of the incumbent utility. The utility that residents come from, they're copying that similar structure. The rates could be 4.4% less per our business plan. So from that standpoint, yes, large users would see a larger savings. Copying over some of those rates from Southern California Edison for those consumptions, peak time of use, all of those things, all those types of rate changes would be included as well, is what we're seeing across the state. That is something, again, the board would decide if they would want to copy Edison's rates or not. Staff recommendations would be to do that on the onset to avoid any sort of confusion to your residents from what they're used to seeing in terms of rates. But we do see a potential for 4.4% savings, up to 4.4% savings there. The net energy metering piece, for those folks that have solar on their homes, they are a net energy meter customer. Edison does, at the end of a year, true up your usage versus your generation, and they will provide a certain rate. What we are seeing, we're looking at Edison will provide a. I get the 2 confused. I guess what I'm trying to say is what we're seeing with CCAs is that net energy metering, that true-up process, there's about a cent per kilowatt hour additional that CCAs are providing to net energy metering customers. But the rate is still the same, similar to Southern California Edison's rate. We're just able to incentivize that a little bit greater.
Thank you.
If I might, just to follow up on what you just said, Tyler. So, did I understand you correctly that if a resident has solar, and we go with the CCA, that they would see an increase or a decrease in the net metering?
Greater savings.
True up. So better savings. Okay. I have some kind of basic questions, I guess. First of all, there's a number of power generating options. currently, if you're an SCE customer, you're getting power through their grid, their distribution grid, and they're acquiring power at a variety of sites. So what would the CCA be doing differently to acquire power that results in 4 to 5% savings?
The CCA, Western Community Energy, would be essentially have the opportunity to buy similar power that Edison is purchasing on the market. We aren't as heavily, well, the CCAs aren't as heavily regulated by the CPUC in how they purchase or what they purchase. They're not required to purchase certain things. They are required, however, to meet the same goals that Edison has. So we are able to, we're able to stay competitive in the market of purchasing power. However, given that CCAs are local agencies, there is that tax exempt piece that we're able to utilize to CCA's advantages to lower costs as one portion. On the other hand, the operating expenses of CCAs are much smaller. We are anticipating we would have a corner of our office, 4 to 6 folks, staff, on the CCA. This is quite a bit less operating expenses than perhaps a utility might have in a similar field. So we're looking at operating versus also procurement savings in general.
Well, I understand the concept of CCA maybe having a smaller staff footprint, and there could be savings there, but an energy producer is going to produce energy and sell it. So they're going to sell it to CCA, or they're going to sell it to Edison, SCE, and under a CCA, we would be using SCE's distribution system, right?
Correct.
So I guess what's a little befuddling to me is if SCE is going through I hate all these acronyms, the PUC to establish their rates, and they establish their rates based on what happens more often than not in Northern California, and that's going to impact what they charge. And if we're using their distribution system and their grid to distribute, it seems illogical to me that regardless of the source of the energy, if you're going to have to travel down SCE's distribution highway, and their distribution highway is going to be impacted by the California PUC, those are going to get transferred over. They're going to be passed on to the end consumer, at least in my way of thinking. And I'm not really comprehending how there's a savings derived at that, from that process. I guess I'm going to date myself a little bit, but way back when cell phones first started becoming, yeah, I am dating myself. It's easy to do. When the brick phones, there were basically two providers. And then once cell phone market started to take hold, a lot of smaller companies cropped up. But they were basically resellers, and they were using one of the two major cell phone service providers and reselling it. And obviously and ultimately what happened is the little places, lasted for a little while and then they went away. Because you had the major cell phone service providers prevailed, and the little places went away. So I guess that's kind of in the back of my mind when I'm thinking of a CCA. Might it not go the way of the cell phone small providers, which went the way of the dinosaurs? So Can you help me
Sure.
get my head around that?
Yeah, and thank you for that. Thank you for that analogy. So instead of us, purchasing a cell phone and reselling it, we would be more of a partner in that case. So right now, if you look at your Edison bill, it's made up of two buckets. It's a generation bucket and then the distribution bucket. The distribution is what you're talking about, what the energy going, to your home from the big wooden poles, and the distribution and transmission lines on those. The generation piece is what the CCA would be doing. We would be purchasing that energy, utilizing Southern California Edison's, working with Edison, utilizing their property, their assets, their transmission lines, distributing that energy to the consumer. We would be partnering on the billing portion for those two buckets. We would just take over the generation piece. We would be able to provide that at a lesser cost, given all of the operating expenses, having lesser staff, having to work on all of those moving pieces as related to generation. But we would continue to work with Edison if there were any sort of operational issues, transmission distribution pieces. So there will remain a low. There will still be an increased level of service, the same level of service, with working with Southern California Edison on the generation and on the distribution of the power that we're providing. Did that provide a little bit of clarity?
Yeah, I understand the concept. I'm still not quite getting understand the distribution, but the acquisition of the power. Edison's getting the power somewhere, and the CCA would be purchasing the power somewhere. What assurance would we have that CCA is going to be able to purchase it at a better rate than Edison is? If we're still going to use their distribution system, it would really seem to boil down to what we're paying for the generation. And so I'm not seeing how the CCA is going to get a better rate than Edison, unless they're just being overcharged.
We'll be utilizing the Energy Authority. They're a nonprofit power marketer. They'll be helping to balance that portfolio. They balance energy portfolios across the West Coast. They're actually owned by 8 nonprofit municipal authorities. So utilizing their credit and their tax exempt status as a not-for-profit, we are able to utilize their existing contracts and the existing entities that they purchase power from at what we're assuming will be a more cost-effective rate.
So the basic savings is for-profit versus non-profit. Okay.
Any more questions?
A couple. Hi, Tyler. Good job. On page 3 of the handout that you gave us in the slide presentation, there is titled CCA Expansion in California, and the ones that are operational have little numbers next to them. I'm assuming, is that the number of entities and or cities or counties that are working with them? Because I see Lancaster Choice Energy with a 2, and I believe that's the one San Jacinto is working or contracting with or being served by, or whatever the terminology should be. So it's the city of Lancaster and the city of San Jacinto that are involved in that deal.
That is correct.
Okay.
And
so
11 would be Western Riverside County.
Okay, so basically then these are people we could call and talk to about their personal experience and everything else in it. And I don't know if this is the same type of thing, but a couple years ago, RTA, Riverside Transit Agency, had done a lot of research on buying their natural gas for the fleet, for the vehicles, the buses and things like that, and actually found that if they went through a different entity, they could buy their natural gas cheaper than from Southern California Gas Company. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, they've saved over $500,000 on purchasing natural gas. The transmission, like you say, is still the same. It comes through the gas company's lines, but it's the purchasing power of the entity that they're going with that allows them to have the cost savings. So I'm assuming that this is kind of like that same type of deal.
Very similar. It sounds like that's the concept is analogous. Yeah, I believe RTA also partnered with similar agencies in an aggregate form as well for what you're mentioning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's
Anyone else? I think our city attorney had some comments or questions.
First, I just wanted to thank the staff at WRCOG. We sent them about 30 questions late last week that we thought the council needed answers to. They provided what I thought was a pretty comprehensive memo to you today. You have that. That can be included in your decision as part of the public record if you'd like. We also provided you with a memo that summarizes what I think are some of the key aspects of the Joint Powers Agreement. I don't plan to go over those. I think we've done that already. I just had a question and then a comment. One, I think to Councilmember Brown's point, it's important to remember that what you're talking about here is a nonprofit government entity itself that's going to be formed, the JPA, that's going to be providing the power as opposed to an investor-owned utility. And so there could be cost savings because of that. None of those are guaranteed, of course, and you can have costs on the back end that we might end up with. But I wanted to zero in on the timing of this a little bit because the go, no-go date in September is going to be right here around the corner, and the council's already decided not to meet at your meeting of August 14th. So tonight, Tyler, you've indicated that the council just needs to give a verbal statement of interest, but I know that we do have to, at some point, join the JPA and adopt an ordinance. And I'm curious when the joining of the JPA, signing of it has to be done, and when our ordinance has to be done. Does that have to all be done before August?
Approval of the resolution and ordinance before August is what we're hoping for.
So that means your next meeting.
So that doesn't give us much time. So with that, are we looking for direction?
It is July.
This is something that we want to.
Somewhere I missed the whole month of July.
I have
I'm
a
sorry. We can do it in July. Yeah.
okay. The question I have: if we would
That's
say
right.
yes for our intention so that we can go forward, and we're not deciding this for a year, why do we need an ordinance in place? Because if we haven't finalized it, then why would an ordinance need to be in place?
To develop the JPA and participate in the governing board.
So it is a little more than just saying we're interested.
It's to develop Western Community Energy, the JPA, and then we would have until September on that go or no-go decision to still identify if it's feasible. If it's not, if it's a no-go, there's no harm to any city that sits on the board that's participating at that point. No energy has been procured, will have been procured at that point.
Councilmember, I believe the reason for the ordinance is that that's required by state law in order to allow our residents and businesses to opt into the plan. And without that, they can't opt into the plan.
But you see what I'm saying? We're going to adopt an ordinance that we're not necessarily going to follow. So it just seems weird to me.
Understand?
Yeah, but without it, we can't do anything. And we've probably looked at this for the last 6 months, at least, right, Tyler? Longer?
2 years.
2 years. And again, 11th hour. And I know, again, that, there's a lot of questions, and there should be. You want to know what you can expect. Remember that anybody who chooses to opt out can. Heck, I just lost my train of thought. Shoot.
So this will, in a sense, it's, if the city were to come on board, the residents would have to opt out because it's an automatic opt-in, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this would, in a sense, give people an option to either go with the WRCOG's produced power or Southern California Edison. So in a sense, it takes away Edison's monopoly
Correct.
on who you're going to purchase power from, and it could give a cost savings to, there's a potential savings to the end user.
I would like to mention as well, as part of the PUC statute, we would have to, it's a requirement to do public notifications, billing inserts to all of the customers at least 3 or 4 times. We're looking at enhancing that a few times more. So we're looking at 4 or 5 billing inserts just to let folks know about this program and providing that opportunity to opt out.
And that's on the cost of WRCOG and not
Right.
Correct.
the city
Right.
limit.
Correct.
And from what I understand from the meetings that I've been in is that they are very aware of the extent of this campaign, educational campaign, will take to make sure that the residents understand the whole process and what it will do. And another question I wanted to bring up. So the percentage, is that formulated basically from the population of the cities, of the entity? So you said, we could save up to 2%. There's some that save up to 4%. So is that formulated from the size of the city that would be participating?
No, the 4.4% savings was actually the regional savings. The 2% that we used was we just wanted to
Okay.
go even more conservative.
Okay.
But it's not based on the size.
Okay. This is a discussion item, so Sarah, do you have anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Mark would like to speak.
Okay. Mark?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. Thanks for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Mark Cloud. I'm a government affairs representative from Southern California Edison. And normally tonight, these comments would be given by Eileen Flores, my colleague, who I think some of you know. She is tonight giving comments at another city here in the Inland Empire. So I was asked, I won basically. I was asked to come and fill her shoes tonight. A couple of things I wanted to mention about CCAs from our perspective. One, you should know, SCE has a bit of restriction on what we can say. That's based on protocol that was put in place by the CPUC. So while we provide some comments and perspectives from Edison on CCAs, there are certain things we can't say. So if you have questions tonight or moving on, we can get you some information, but perhaps not everything you're looking for. That's the whole educate, not advocate thing, right? So the other thing is that I wanted to mention, and I'm sure WRCOG's already kept you apprised of this, but this summer, the California Public Utilities Commission will be making a decision on the power charge indifference adjustment, the PCIA. It's very easy to find information on this online. You can Google it. They're making a decision on this particular item this summer, and so we're tracking it very, very closely because it will have impacts for us and our customers, et cetera. So the PCIA is something that you'd want to look at as you make your decision on what to do with the CCA option. The other thing I want to let you all know is Edison would be more than happy to provide some subject matter experts to come and present to you either in this format or this forum or another one, perhaps public meeting or something where our SMEs who've been tracking CCA very, very closely for obvious reasons, has big impacts on our business or potential impacts on our business and our customers. We've been tracking it very, very closely. So we've got some folks in our organization who know a lot about this, way more than I know, than can tell you about tonight. But we'd be happy to set up an informational session with those folks, and they'd be happy to come and tell you more about CCA from Edison's perspective and answer your questions. That's really all I wanted to say tonight. We're here as a resource, and I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you have tonight. If not, I will ask Eileen, if you'd like, to reach out to you after tonight's meeting to set something up where our SMEs can come out and address your questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mark? All right, thank you.
Take care.
So, moving forward, is this something that this council would like to further explore? And I was, as Mark was talking, maybe we could have a work study prior to the council meeting and then have this on the agenda as something that we could move forward with, or is this something the council's not interested in?
Well,
What's your thoughts?
you know, we've looked at this for a long time. Obviously, you know, I see, you know, wouldn't really like to lose the business. But there's a number of agencies that have participated in this particular entity concept, and I think it's important to remember that none of them have opted out. So there's got to be a reason why they feel comfortable having stayed in it. I don't know how long you can belabor something when it's been over 2 years. I think that we have interest in providing this service to the community if they choose to take advantage of it. And it should be their choice as your decision as to whether or not you think it's a benefit or not. So I don't see a whole lot to lose at this point. Again, unknowns. There's always unknowns. How long are you going to drag something out until until everybody's passed you by again, and everybody's saving and you're not. So I would hope that we would at least show the interest in what this could do for the city and the community, and let the people make their choice as to whether or not they want to be a part of it or they don't. It's their choice. It's your choice. And we wouldn't even consider this if, in fact, we didn't think it could be a benefit. So, just my 2 cents, again.
I would agree with Bonnie. I think it definitely, we need to go forward with it, do our own homework as far as talking to people who live in these other areas. Hey, even residents of San Jacinto. I mean, give them a call if you know somebody that lives over there and see if they've had any savings on their electric bill. But it is one of those things that I really think we need to explore. My next question, was there a template for the ordinance, or do we have to start at square one?
Now, WRCOG staff has provided both a template for what we would need to sign for the JPA and for the ordinance. Our only issue would be timing. If you decided to move forward, I would recommend that we have this on your first council meeting in July, so that we can have you consider the JPA, joining the JPA, and then do the first reading of the ordinance, and come back at your second meeting in July for the second reading, which could be on the consent calendar. And that would set you up to not have to have a special meeting or something in August.
But that would go against what we always do. When we cancel one meeting, we have 3 more.
Just trying to save you from that.
So I don't think we need a motion on this. I think it's just direction, give direction to staff. I would like to...
Why don't we need a motion on it?
Well, we can. I mean, we can make it official.
Well, I'd like to make it official that we have some interest in moving forward. Doesn't commit ourselves to anything as far as joining. So I will make a motion right now that we commit or at least have interest in looking further into the CCA and with possible approach to join at a later date.
Don't we have to be a little bit more definite with that and say to bring back the resolution and
Bring
the
back the ordinance.
ordinance and the agreement for consideration at our first meeting in July? That's Bonnie's motion.
Bonnie, is that your motion?
Yeah, that's my motion. Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Please vote. There's your direction. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler.
Up next, Park Securing Services, Finance Director Rocha. Or not. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. For those of you that don't know, can you all hear me? Yes. I am the procurement administrator for the city of Hemet.
Can you come up just a little bit?
Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Crystal Robinson. I am the procurement administrator for the city of Hemet, and I will be doing the presentation. One more fish. Okay, so I am doing a little presentation on the Park Securing RFP. Just a little summary and a little bit of background. Due to the fact that it's a Best Value Award, the City Parks Division administers a park securing contract for 5 city parks: Vincent Park, Gibble Park, Weston Park, Brubaker Park, and Mary Henley Park. At this time, the city has been receiving services, park patrol services from its current vendor since 2012, which is Patrol Masters. The timeline for this RFP started, we'll say back in January of 2018. Staff was directed to do its RFP to ensure fair and competitive pricing for these services. February 1st, 2018, Park Securing Service, what did I do? I'm not good at this, sorry. There we go. February 1st, 2018, Park Securing Services RFP was released with the lowest bidder award. On February 28th, 2018, Park Securing Services RFP closed and 6 proposals were received. On March 27th, 2018, city staff recommended Park Securing Services contract award to Alltech Industries, Inc. as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. On that same date, March 27th, 2018, City Council rejected all bids and directed staff to reissue the RFP as a Best Value Award. On April 23rd, 2018, staff released the newly revised Best Value Park Securing Services RFP. And on May 8th, 2018, Park Securing Services RFP closed with 6 proposals received. The 6 proposals received were from Absolute International Security, Alltech Industries, Inc., Hemet Gatekeepers, Patrol Masters, Power Security Group, Public Protective Services. On May 10th, 2018, the initial cost summary was posted to Planet Bids. The review that I have done from these proposals was reference checks. Basically, all the references for all of the companies came back positive. And then I also prepared a detailed cost and best value summary. And it is noted in the staff report as Exhibit A. There's also in the staff report a short summary noted on page 2 and 3. The short summary just references the highest to lowest cost for each company, years with private patrol operator license, experience with government agencies, and the office location. Basically, the best value criteria is noted here. It was adopted on January 9th, 2018. It is section 2-366, best value criteria of Hemet Municipal Code. Basically, you can pick your best value company that you feel you would like to recommend for the new contract, and these are all the guidelines or criteria that you can award by. Do you want me to read them all? Okay. There was a few questions in regards to local vendor preference qualifications. So I wanted to make sure I pointed out the qualifications. Normally for local vendor preference, it only pertains to lowest responsive bidders per our municipal code, but per city council direction, it was left in the RFP for this best value award so it could be considered. To qualify as a vendor for the lowest bid, their proposal price gets reduced by 5% and then compared again to the lowest bidder's proposal. So with that, the local vendor then has the lowest proposal price. They are given an opportunity to price match the actual cost of the lowest bid. In this case, the local vendor was not the lowest bidder after applying the 5%. Therefore, they do not qualify for the opportunity to match the actual lowest bid. So with that, it's basically they don't qualify in the regards to the municipal code. The fiscal impact, we don't see any fiscal impact. Funds for this service have been requested through the fiscal year 18-19 Parks Division operating budget in the amount of $35,000. My recommendation is to review the summary results from all 5 proposals. There was 6, but Alltech has withdrawn their proposal. Determine which provider's proposal achieves the best value for the city. Award the contract to the service provider's proposal was determined to be the best value, and authorize the city manager to execute park security services agreement effective July 1st for initial 3-year term and 2 1-year options to extend, as well as exercise renewal options and approve extension amendments. I'm sure there's questions and comments.
Questions for staff?
I have a question for the city attorney. Can you explain why someone would recuse themselves from voting on this?
In general,
All the reasons.
we might be here for a while. But in your case, which I'm familiar with, you do not have a legal conflict of interest, but I know that you have done volunteer work with one of the potential vendors. And so in that case, you're not compelled to recuse yourself or not to participate, but you could opt to do that if you feel that that would help avoid any appearance of impropriety.
Thank you.
I have the first question that I have. So you just mentioned in your last slide that Alltech has withdrawn.
Yes.
So the lowest bidder has now pulled out, so they're no longer an option.
Yes.
So now the next 2 lowest bidders are Power Security Group and Hemet Gatekeepers.
Yes.
Okay. Questions for staff?
And Power Securities, who we have now.
No. Patrol Masters.
Patrol
is who we
Masters,
have.
okay. So I'm glad that Patrol Masters was not the lowest bidder, because we went through another Memorial Day. We did not? No, wasn't our problem. Never mind. I thought we had our memorial, our Veterans Memorial gates locked on Memorial Day. But I guess I didn't. We didn't. So I'm glad. It was vandalism. was vandalized, yeah. So, needless to say, there were a number of people upset because they couldn't get into the memorial that day, and I'm so happy to know that at least it wasn't because of someone not doing their job. But unfortunately, on the other hand, on the other side of that, vandals got in and ruined the lock, so I stand corrected. Which brings me to another thought, and that is that things can happen from one moment to the next. And the majority of these companies are pretty far away. Temecula, not. The Patrol Masters isn't that far. Temecula, obviously. But if something were to happen that they could not patrol, and they would have to get somebody to take their place. And we all know that there's situations that happen in the moment. I am more comforted with the idea that there's more resources close by in order to do what needed to be done. So that's my 2 cents again.
Russ?
Yeah, I have a question. With the withdrawal of Altech bid, would that not facilitate Hemet gatekeepers qualifying for local vendor preference?
Because the prices are the same, it doesn't come into effect, because if you give them a 5% discount, there's nothing, they already have it $9, unless you would like to ask them to honor a 5% discount, that would be up to you. But because the prices are the same, we don't need to give a local vendor preference to give.
Okay. But they're still the low bidder anyhow, with Altech withdrawing.
No.
Tied.
No, they're both at $9.
Right, they're tied with Power Security.
Yes.
But Altech withdrew, which previously would have
Yes,
been
so
the low
yes,
bidder.
they would be the lowest bidder.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to editorialize a little bit, if I might. First of all, I think I appreciate the fact that we have a local company bidding on this project and this contract. And I agree with Bonnie. When you're dealing with security issues and all of the unknowns that come associated with security, and the fact that there is an ongoing dynamic that might require you to have some additional resources available, and so a shorter response time to me would be desirable. But philosophically, I think as we're trying to enhance the image of our city and advocating people bringing business to this community, we have a local company, albeit a fledgling company, that has shown an interest and has acquired quite a number of clients in a short amount of time. And we heard at our previous discussion a number of people advocate for them, that they've had not only good service from them, but substantially better service than what they were receiving with previous companies. So I guess my editorial is, I live in an HOA community that contracts for security services. And we recently went through a similar process and looked at a number of vendors. And at the time that we did that, Hemet Gatekeepers wasn't around yet. But we opted to go with essentially a fledgling company because of what they represented in customer service and response time and work ethic, essentially. Over a number of well-established other companies. So I personally don't have any qualms about contracting with a newer company. The only thing that I found in looking at a comparison of all of them is that Hemet Gatekeepers doesn't currently do any drug screening. And I would certainly advocate that that would be a valuable thing to do, because I think that in today's society, unfortunately, it's become a necessity to drug screen employees. So I think that's the only hiccup that I would see about Hemet Gatekeepers. So